What if the world's most fascinating women live in a city where showing emotion to strangers could be seen as weakness? Yet behind closed doors, they engage in conversations that would make philosophers weep. Moscow isn't just Russia's capital, it's a metropolis where beauty standards were forged in imperial ballrooms and Soviet factories, where women navigate a culture that demands both strength and grace in equal measure. Here, the concept of feminine beauty extends far beyond appearance into realms of intellect, resilience, and emotional depth that most of the world has never understood. The women walking these snow-covered streets carry stories of survival that would humble most, yet maintain an elegance that turns heads from Red Square to the gleaming towers of Moscow City. But there's something deeper happening here, a cultural phenomenon that reveals why Moscow has earned this reputation. Stay with me as we uncover 15 mind-blowing truths about this extraordinary city that will completely transform how you see Russia, its people, and the meaning of true beauty. If you're ready to see the world differently, hit subscribe and ring the bell. This isn't another travel guide. This is the untold story of a city that has shaped some of history's most remarkable women and continues to do so today. Number 1. The subway that changed everything. Moscow's metro isn't just transportation, it's a daily fashion runway where appearances matter more than punctuality. Every morning, millions of women descend into what locals call underground palaces. Spaces so ornate, they make European cathedrals look modest. Here's what visitors never realize. The metro system inadvertently created a unique beauty culture. Soviet planners built these stations as symbols of communist achievement, adorning them with chandeliers, mosaics, and marble that cost more than entire cities. But they also created something unexpected, a public space where everyone, regardless of social class, would spend significant time together every single day. This forced interaction created an unspoken dress code. Women began treating their commute as a social event, leading to what sociologists now recognize as metro elegance, the art of looking polished while navigating one of the world's busiest underground systems. The result? A culture where looking put together isn't vanity, it's respect for shared public space. Watch a woman navigate the escalators at Mayakovskaya Station in heels that would challenge Olympic athletes, and you'll understand why Moscow women have earned their reputation for effortless sophistication. But this is just the surface of something much deeper. Number 2. The kitchen table revolution. Behind every Moscow apartment door lies the true heart of Russian feminine power, the kitchen table. This isn't about cooking. It's about a tradition called kitchen conversations that produced some of history's most influential women. During Soviet times, when public spaces were monitored and free speech was dangerous, the kitchen became a sanctuary for honest conversation. Women gathered around small tables in cramped apartments, discussing literature, politics, philosophy, and life with a depth that would astound most cultures. These weren't casual chats, they were intellectual salons that could last until dawn. This tradition created generations of women who could engage in complex discussions about Dostoevsky while serving tea, debate political theory while preparing meals, and offer profound life advice while never raising their voices above a whisper. The kitchen table was where marriages were analyzed, children's futures planned, and resistance movements born. Today, this tradition continues. Moscow women possess a conversational depth that catches foreign visitors off guard. They can discuss quantum physics and poetry with equal fluency, often in the same conversation. The beauty here isn't just physical, it's intellectual courage combined with emotional wisdom, forged in intimate spaces where authenticity was the only currency that mattered. Number 3. The babushka blueprint. Every beautiful Moscow woman learned from a babushka, a grandmother whose strength could bend steel and whose love could heal hearts. These aren't gentle grandmothers knitting in rocking chairs. Russian babushkas are forces of nature who survive famines, wars, and revolutions while maintaining families and communities. They're the unofficial rulers of apartment buildings, metro stations, and family dynamics. Here's what shapes Moscow's feminine ideal. Babushkas taught their granddaughters that true beauty requires backbone. Physical appearance matters, but not as much as the ability to endure hardship while maintaining dignity. These women lived through the siege of Leningrad, Stalin's purges, and the collapse of the Soviet Union. They raised children during food shortages, worked in factories during wars, and kept families together when men were sent to gulags or battlefields. The lesson they passed down wasn't about makeup or fashion, it was about inner steel. A Moscow woman's beauty is built on this foundation of resilience. She knows how to be elegant in a designer dress and equally comfortable scrubbing floors if necessary. This creates a unique combination: women who can discuss art at a gallery opening and fix a broken pipe the next morning. The babushka blueprint produced women who see strength and femininity not as opposites, but as inseparable qualities. If you think Moscow women are just pretty faces, type 1 in the comments. If you understand they're warriors in elegant packaging, type 2. Number 4. The Orthodox influence. Russian Orthodox Christianity shapes Moscow's beauty standards in ways that would surprise most Western observers. This isn't about religious rules, it's about an aesthetic philosophy that's been developing for over 10 years. Orthodox churches don't just worship God, they create environments of overwhelming beauty designed to give believers a glimpse of heaven on earth. Golden domes, intricate icons, and ceremonial robes aren't decorative. They're theological statements about the divine nature of beauty itself. This has profoundly influenced how Moscow women approach their appearance. Unlike cultures that see beauty as vanity or temptation, Orthodox tradition views physical beauty as a reflection of spiritual harmony. The icons of female saints aren't austere or plain, they're radiantly beautiful, combining purity with elegance. This created a cultural permission for women to be both devout and stunning, spiritual and stylish. Visit any Moscow church during a service and observe the congregation. Women arrive wearing their finest clothes, treating worship as an occasion for beauty, not hiding from it. The Orthodox calendar, with its feast days and festivals, provides regular opportunities for this display of spiritual elegance. This religious foundation gives Moscow women a unique relationship with beauty. It's not shallow self-improvement. It's a way of honoring the divine through physical presentation. The result is women who carry themselves with a kind of sacred confidence that's immediately recognizable but difficult to replicate. Number 5. The temperature test. Moscow's brutal climate created the world's most practical beauty innovators. When temperatures drop to -30°C and stay there for months, looking good becomes an engineering challenge that would defeat most cosmetics companies. Moscow women didn't just adapt, they revolutionized cold weather elegance. They developed techniques that NASA could study: makeup that won't freeze, hairstyles that survive fur hats, and clothing combinations that maintain both warmth and sophistication. Watch a Moscow woman emerge from a subway station during a blizzard. Her makeup is perfect, her hair is styled, and she's wearing boots that could climb mountains while looking like they belong on a catwalk. This isn't accident, it's generations of accumulated wisdom about maintaining beauty in conditions that would send most people running for the closest couch. The climate also created a unique appreciation for indoor spaces. Moscow women treat entering a warm building like a theatrical entrance. Coats come off to reveal carefully planned outfits, hair is quickly restyled from under winter hats, and within seconds, the practical Arctic survivor becomes an elegant socialite. This daily transformation ritual requires skills that most women never develop. It's created a culture where adaptability and preparation are considered essential feminine virtues, right alongside traditional beauty. The temperature test separated the committed from the casual, producing women who refuse to let conditions dictate their standards. Number 6. The literary legacy. Moscow women grow up surrounded by the ghosts of literature's most complex female characters, and it shows in every conversation. This city produced Anna Karenina, Natasha Rostova, and Lara Antipova, fictional women whose emotional depth and intellectual complexity set standards that real women unconsciously try to meet. Russian literature doesn't feature simple heroines. These are women who love passionately, think deeply, suffer dramatically, and emerge either triumphant or beautifully tragic. Growing up with these models creates expectations that extend far beyond appearance. A Moscow woman is expected to be interesting enough to inspire novels, complex enough to warrant analysis, and passionate enough to make life feel like art. This literary heritage manifests in daily life. Moscow women read voraciously, discuss books seriously, and quote poetry naturally in conversation. They're raised on stories of women who changed history through force of personality rather than political power. Visit any Moscow bookstore or literary cafe, and you'll find women engaged in discussions that would be considered pretentious in most cultures, but are simply normal here. This creates a unique type of beauty, intellectual attractiveness combined with emotional sophistication. Moscow women don't just want to be admired, they want to be understood. They cultivate personalities that could fill novels because they've been taught that surface beauty fades, but fascinating women remain fascinating forever. The literary legacy created women who see themselves as characters in their own epic stories, and they dress and behave accordingly. Number 7. The ballet standard. The Bolshoi Theater isn't just Moscow's cultural crown jewel, it's the institution that defined physical grace for an entire civilization. For over 240 years, this theater has been producing dancers whose combination of athletic ability, artistic expression, and ethereal beauty has set standards that influence every Moscow woman, whether she's ever taken a dance class or not. Russian ballet demands perfection in movement, posture, and presentation that goes far beyond entertainment. These dancers must convey complex emotions through physical expression while maintaining technical precision that would exhaust Olympic athletes. The Bolshoi standard infiltrated Moscow culture because ballet performances were major social events where the entire city's elite would gather to see and be seen. Women in the audience knew they were being observed almost as much as the performers on stage. This created a cultural expectation that every woman should move with some degree of balletic grace. Watch Moscow women walk down the street. There's a fluidity to their movement, a consciousness of posture, and an economy of gesture that reflects centuries of ballet influence. They don't just move through space, they inhabit it elegantly. This standard extends to how they sit, how they gesture during conversation, and how they carry themselves in both formal and casual settings. The ballet influence created women who understand that beauty isn't just how you look, it's how you move through the world. Every step is considered, every gesture has purpose, and every public appearance is treated as a minor performance worthy of an audience's attention. Number 8. The patriarchal paradox. Here's Moscow's most fascinating contradiction. In a culture that maintains traditional gender roles, women wield enormous behind-the-scenes power. And this dynamic has created a unique form of feminine strength that confuses outside observers. Russian society appears male-dominated on the surface. Men are expected to be providers and decision-makers, while women are supposed to focus on family and home. But anyone who spends time with Moscow families quickly discovers that women often control the important decisions while allowing men to maintain public authority. This isn't submission, it's strategy. Moscow women learn to achieve their goals through influence rather than confrontation, persuasion rather than demands. They became masters of what sociologists call soft power, creating change through relationships rather than rebellion. This approach produced women who are simultaneously traditional and revolutionary. They'll cook elaborate meals for their families and run successful businesses. They'll defer to their husbands in public and make all the real decisions in private. They'll appear conventionally feminine while possessing strength that would intimidate most men. The result is women who've never needed feminism in the Western sense because they never gave up power, they just exercised it differently. Moscow women learned to be beautiful, supportive partners while maintaining their own ambitions and opinions. This created a feminine ideal that combines traditional aesthetics with modern capability, producing women who can navigate both worlds with equal skill. Number 9. The suffering aesthetic. Russian culture has turned suffering into an art form, and Moscow women embody this philosophy in ways that create a beauty standard unlike anywhere else on earth. This isn't about seeking pain, it's about finding meaning and strength in hardship that transforms both character and appearance. Russian literature, music, and art celebrate the nobility of enduring difficulty with grace. Heroes aren't those who avoid suffering, but those who face it with dignity and emerge more beautiful for the experience. This cultural foundation created women who see challenges as opportunities for growth rather than obstacles to avoid. The suffering aesthetic manifests in a unique type of beauty that combines melancholy with strength, vulnerability with resilience. Moscow women often possess a depth in their eyes that suggests they've seen more of life than their years would indicate. This isn't depression, it's wisdom earned through experience. They understand that happiness gained through struggle is more meaningful than pleasure that comes easily. This philosophy influences everything from fashion choices to facial expressions. Moscow women don't smile constantly like their American counterparts, not because they're unhappy, but because they reserve genuine emotion for moments that deserve it. When they do smile, it carries weight. When they love, it's with their entire being. When they commit to something, it's with an understanding of what that commitment might cost. The suffering aesthetic produced women who are beautiful not despite their struggles, but because of how they've transformed those struggles into strength. What do you think is beauty enhanced by experience, or should it remain untouched by life's difficulties? Share your thoughts in the comments. Number 10. The educational empire. Moscow is home to some of the world's most prestigious universities, and this educational infrastructure created a culture where intelligence is considered the most attractive quality a woman can possess. Russian higher education has always been co-educational and highly competitive, producing generations of women who see intellectual achievement as natural rather than exceptional. Moscow State University, one of the Seven Sisters skyscrapers, isn't just a building, it's a monument to the belief that education is the foundation of civilization. Women compete equally with men for admission to programs in physics, mathematics, literature, and medicine. This created a culture where a woman's educational credentials are discussed with the same pride as her appearance. The educational emphasis produced what outsiders often notice first about Moscow women. They can discuss virtually any topic with depth and insight. They read newspapers, follow international politics, understand economics, and engage with culture at levels that would challenge university professors in most countries. This isn't showing off, it's normal conversation. The educational empire also created economic independence. Moscow women work in fields traditionally dominated by men in other cultures: engineering, computer science, medical research, and finance. They see career success as part of their identity, not a departure from femininity. This combination of traditional beauty with intellectual achievement created women who refuse to choose between being attractive and being accomplished. They expect to be both, and they've built lives that make both possible. The educational foundation gives Moscow women confidence that comes from competence, creating an attractiveness that deepens rather than fades with time. Number 11. The fashion underground. During Soviet times, when Western fashion was banned and individual expression was discouraged, Moscow women created an underground fashion culture that required more creativity and resourcefulness than anything Paris or Milan has ever produced. This wasn't just about clothes, it was about maintaining feminine identity under a system that wanted everyone to look identical. Soviet stores sold 3 types of dresses, 2 styles of shoes, and makeup that came in shades ranging from pale to slightly less pale. But Moscow women refused to accept uniformity. They developed skills that would make modern fashion designers weep with envy. They could transform a basic government-issued dress into something elegant, create cosmetics from household items, and style hair without proper products or tools. They studied Western fashion magazines smuggled in by diplomats, memorized styles from foreign films, and recreated designer looks using whatever materials they could find. The fashion underground created a network of women who shared techniques, traded rare items, and supported each other's efforts to maintain individuality. This experience produced women who understand fashion at a fundamental level that goes far beyond shopping. They know how to create beauty from limitations, how to make simple items look expensive, and how to express personality through subtle details that others might miss. Even today, when Moscow women have access to every luxury brand, they retain this underground creativity. They mix high-end pieces with vintage finds, create unique combinations that fashion editors copy, and maintain an approach to style that values cleverness over conformity. Number 12. The Victory Day Legacy. Every year on May 9th, Moscow becomes a stage for the most important celebration in Russian culture, Victory Day, commemorating the defeat of Nazi Germany. This isn't just a military parade. It's a day when the entire concept of Russian strength, sacrifice, and beauty is put on display. With women playing a central role in maintaining the memory of the Great Patriotic War, the Victory Day tradition created a unique relationship between Moscow women and the concept of honor. They grow up hearing stories of women who worked in munitions factories, served as snipers, flew combat missions, and kept families alive during the siege of Leningrad. These weren't exceptional women. They were ordinary women who did extraordinary things when history demanded it. This legacy created an expectation that beauty should coexist with courage, that femininity shouldn't exclude capability, and that women should be prepared to sacrifice comfort for principles. Watch the Immortal Regiment march, where millions of Moscow residents carry portraits of family members who fought in the war. The women participating aren't just honoring the dead, they're promising to be worthy of their sacrifice. The Victory Day legacy influences Moscow women in subtle but powerful ways. They possess a seriousness about life that comes from understanding that their freedom was purchased with blood. They appreciate beauty partly because they know how easily it can be destroyed. They value strength because they've inherited stories of what happens when strength fails. This creates women who are simultaneously grateful for peaceful times and prepared for whatever challenges might come. The victory legacy produced women who see themselves as guardians of both beauty and strength, responsible for preserving what previous generations died to protect. Number 13. The wealth divide drama. Moscow's extreme wealth inequality created a unique dynamic where women from different economic classes developed entirely different versions of beauty, yet somehow maintained mutual respect across the divide. This city contains both billionaires' wives shopping on Tverskaya Street and factory workers riding the same metro lines, creating daily interactions between women whose lifestyles are separated by more than most countries' entire economies. The wealthy Moscow woman has access to the world's finest everything: personal trainers, nutritionists, stylists, and cosmetic procedures that can cost more than most people's annual salaries. She shops in boutiques that most women only see in magazines and travels to beauty destinations others can't pronounce. But here's what's fascinating. The working-class Moscow woman often possesses a natural elegance that money can't buy. She's mastered the art of looking polished on a budget, developed resourcefulness that creates beauty from limitation, and maintained authenticity that wealth sometimes erodes. The divide creates tension, but also unexpected solidarity. Both groups face the same climate, use the same metro system, and share cultural expectations about appearance and behavior. Rich or poor, Moscow women understand that their city judges them by the same standards of grace, intelligence, and strength. The wealth divide drama produced women who appreciate beauty in all its forms while maintaining their own standards regardless of financial resources. A factory worker won't be intimidated by a billionaire's wife because she knows that true Moscow elegance comes from character as much as clothing. This creates a unique dynamic where economic inequality coexists with cultural equality, producing women from all backgrounds who carry themselves with equal dignity. Number 14. The global isolation effect. Recent geopolitical changes have created an unexpected consequence. Moscow women are developing their own beauty standards independent of Western influence for the first time in decades, and the results are fascinating. International brands have left, foreign travel has become complicated, and global fashion magazines are no longer available. Instead of diminishing Moscow's beauty culture, isolation has forced innovation and self-reliance that's producing something entirely new. Moscow women are rediscovering Russian designers, supporting local beauty brands, and creating fashion movements that owe nothing to Paris or New York trends. They're developing makeup techniques using domestic products, exploring traditional Russian aesthetics that were abandoned during the rush to westernize, and finding inspiration in their own cultural heritage. The isolation effect is creating women who look distinctly Russian rather than generically international. They're embracing styles that complement Slavic features, using color palettes inspired by Russian landscapes, and developing fashion sense that reflects their climate and lifestyle rather than copying warmer countries. This return to authenticity is producing beauty that's more individual and culturally specific than the globalized standards that dominated the previous decades. Moscow women are becoming more Russian, not less sophisticated. They're proving that beauty doesn't require foreign validation and that isolation can sometimes produce innovation that connection never could. If you think isolation makes women less beautiful, type 3 in the comments. If you believe authenticity creates more interesting beauty than imitation, type 4. Number 15. The rivers that remember everything. The Moskva River has witnessed over 800 years of the city's history, carrying the reflections of women who've walked these banks through invasions, revolutions, celebrations, and transformations that would break most civilizations. This river connects every era of Moscow's story, and the women reflected in its waters represent an unbroken chain of strength, beauty, and survival that continues today. Medieval princesses once watched their reflections in these waters while planning political marriages that would shape European history. Tsarina Elizabeth used to travel these waters to reach palaces, where she'd hold court sessions that dazzled visiting diplomats with Russian elegance. Soviet women walked these embankments during purges and famines, finding strength in the river's persistence when everything else seemed to crumble. Modern Moscow women jog along these paths at dawn, their reflections mixing with those of generations of women who faced challenges that would destroy most people, yet somehow maintain their grace. The river remembers the laughter of women celebrating Victory Day, the tears of those who lost everything to war and revolution, and the determination of those who rebuilt their lives from nothing. It reflects the faces of babushkas who survived sieges, mothers who raised children during shortages, and daughters who inherited both trauma and resilience from previous generations. Today's Moscow women carry all of this history in their DNA and their daily choices. They understand that their beauty isn't just personal, it's part of a legacy that must be maintained for future generations. The rivers that remember everything have taught Moscow women that true beauty survives whatever history throws at it, adapts to every challenge, and emerges stronger from every test. Step away from the individual facts, and the real story comes into focus. Moscow women aren't just beautiful because of genetics or fashion. They're beautiful because their city created a culture where beauty became inseparable from strength, intelligence from grace, and tradition from innovation. This isn't about physical appearance. It's about a civilization that refuses to let women choose between being attractive and being formidable. Every Moscow woman carries within her the DNA of survivors who maintain their elegance while building subway systems, who preserve their femininity while fighting wars, and who created beauty standards that honor both their bodies and their minds. They represent something that most of the world has lost: the understanding that true beauty requires substance, that lasting attractiveness comes from character, and that the most stunning women are those who can face whatever life brings while never losing their essential grace. The real question isn't why Moscow women are so beautiful, it's whether the rest of the world is ready to understand what beauty actually means when it's forged by history, refined by hardship, and expressed through strength. What do you think defines true beauty? Appearance that fades, or character that endures? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this journey through Moscow's streets and stories opened your eyes to something new, hit that like button and subscribe for more documentaries that reveal the hidden truths behind the world's most fascinating places. The real stories are always deeper than what appears on the surface, and there's so much more to discover.